Welcome to Lockbox, a podcast providing real estate professionals with action items for success. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder of two real estate marketing and tech companies, STEEZY.Digital and realnurture.io. In this podcast, you'll learn from top 1% real estate and mortgage brokers the exact secrets to their success. Welcome to Lockbox. Welcome to Lockbox. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I am here today with Shashank Shekhar.
Hey, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm doing well. So why don't you tell our listeners who you are and where you're from?
I'm from San Jose, California.
Okay. Calling in from San Jose. And what got you into the real estate industry?
It's an interesting story. I was about 18 months in the country. I moved from India, and I was the head of business for a company that used to sell leads to mortgage industry. And it was 2008. And of course, as we all know what happened there with the big mortgage meltdown, most of our clients, they kind of shut the shop or stopped buying leads. And that got me thinking is mortgages was the only thing I knew back then, even though it was, year and a half in the country. And I always wanted to start something on my own. Even when I was at business school, I will tell my friends the only reason I'm doing my MBA is because I want to start something on my own one day. And as crazy as it may sound now, it was a time where I thought, okay, I don't have a job. I'm new to the country. It's year 2008. Nobody's buying or refinancing, but the only thing that I know is really mortgages. So let's start a mortgage company. And that's what I did in 2008. So it was more out of the spirit of entrepreneurship and something that I really wanted to do than thinking through it. I mean, most friends at that point of time thought I was totally crazy to try and open a mortgage business in 2008. But yeah, that's how got me into the business.
Got it. Makes sense. And, now fast forward to today, you have a successful mortgage blog, you have a mortgage company, you have all kinds of things going on. So, why don't you tell our listeners kind of where your current transaction volume is so that they have a little bit of reference of where you're at?
Sure. You're right. I'm the CEO of Arcus Lending, which is the company that I founded in 2008. And I also continue to do my own personal production. Last year, I did $363 million in personal production. Our company did close to $1 billion. And that just in terms of reference for some of the people who may not be on the mortgage side of it, if your audience, 363 million a year is like top 15, top 20 loan officers in the country. And that's the ranking that I've maintained over the last 5-6 years being in the industry. So that's where we are as a company. Of course, the goal is to continuously grow where we are, move from a $1 billion company to about 5 billion in 3 years. That's a trajectory that we're looking at. That may or may not involve my personal production going up, given everything else that comes with growing the company. But that's where we are right now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that insight. And this podcast is really about distilling down the action items for success for other real estate professionals. And so for someone who, they might own their own office, so they're doing personal production, and then they're either a branch or they have their own mortgage company, and they have, maybe scratched 300 million, $500,000 in a year between their office and themselves, but they want to then scale higher, right? They want to grow. What would be some things that they could do, some levers they can pull to help get them over that billion mark? Because $1 billion in a year, not only does it sound amazing, that's a huge feat.
It is. And you're right. I mean, even on the mortgage side where the volume tends to be higher because we get to do refinances and not just purchase. So we kind of have unfair advantage compared to real estate agents who can only do purchase. So from that perspective, even for us, I mean, doing $1 billion there are only a handful of, if I remember, there are probably only 5 loan officers in the history of mortgages who have actually done over $1 billion in 1 year. So it sounds like an impossible feat, so to say.
Wow.
But really, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, even my career, as I said, I was very new to the country. I knew 3 people in the entire country back then when I got in the business. And typically when you get into a real estate industry, you go to your sphere of influence, right? You go to people who you went to college with, you went to high school, your neighbors, whoever you grew up with. And you can say, hey, I'm in a real estate business. I mean, can you give me some business? Or I'm in mortgage business. Can you send me your refinance or purchase? I did not have that luxury because I didn't know anyone here. So given that, I mean, the first 12 months, I did 7 transactions. That's half a transaction a month, which is from there to be doing 60, 70. I mean, last year I did over 800 transactions. That's almost averaging about 70, 80 transactions a month. And that scale is, I mean, of course, it's difficult to pinpoint, Jeffrey, if there was one reason for you to be able to scale from half a loan to, say, 70 loans a month. But I mean, if you were to ask me top two, three things, one is hiring an assistant very early, even though, I mean, at a point when I could not afford her, I was literally doing 2 transactions a month. I was making $5,000-$6,000, which barely takes care of your cost. But I still thought that that's the only way to scale. I can be processing my loan, I can be marketing, and I can't also be originating. So I can't be doing everything and expect to do 10, 20 loans down the road. And that's
Right.
so investing in another resource, even when you think that you don't either have the money or you don't want to part away with that money, because that's another thing that a lot of real estate agent partners that I coach, that they're like, okay, I'm making this much. Why should I give away like $2,000 out of this to somebody else? But if you want to double or triple that, that's the only way to do it, which is by delegation, by leveraging your time. You're talking about the levers that you can pull. Lever is, I mean, the time in a day is only 24 hours, whether you are Beyonce or Mahatma Gandhi or Albert Einstein. I mean, you want to change the world, you don't get extra time just because you happen to be Einstein, right? So from that perspective, you need other people to help you out. And so hiring someone when I did not even have the money to afford her, I think that was definitely one of the best decisions. And then leveraging the marketing itself. I mean, you talked about blogs, so I've been a huge proponent of personal branding even before, say, Gary Vee happened to the industry. Like it was like, I mean, 2009, again, very new to the country. I didn't know who to go to ask for business. And so I started blogging, started doing a lot of things on social media. And that gives you the leverage from marketing perspective. You're not talking one-on-one to a client. So I'm not trying to acquire, say, one client at a time. If my blog reaches 500 people, technically 500 potential clients that I have because of the reach that I have from my blog or my content that I'm creating. So in terms of client acquisition, you need to be able to have that kind of reach, because then that gets you access to multiple clients at the same time versus trying to get one at one, which is the referral business that we have. And finally, just having your priority management right. I think scaling is getting your priorities right is extremely important for scaling. In our business, there are fires all the time. Whether you're on the real estate side of it or mortgage side of it, there's something goes wrong at one point of time, all the time. And so it's when we have to be involved with those fires and urgencies that happens, but at the same time, you need to keep your eye on the prize, which is where do you want to be 2 years, 3 years down the road? And what are the things that you need to work on the business to get that done? So I will always have, I mean, I'll review my goals every single week and see what minor tweaks do we need to make to improve it the next day. So keeping that priority on top, and you might miss it for a day or two. And just to give one example of priority, Jeffrey, is that I was just changing my logo for mortgageblog.com, my website where I blog. And I was just looking at the number of blogs that I've written over last 11, 12 years. And you'll be surprised that there is a blog a week. And I might have missed a couple of weeks here and there. But if you look at the number of blogs, I think there were 560 whatever. But it ties down to almost exactly a blog a week. And that's the discipline. And that's a priority that you need to have. Every blog will not get you business, but if you need to have that discipline. So having your priorities right, even while you're involved with the day-to-day fires and the urgencies of the business, I think so those probably are my top 3 tips if you want to go from, say, where I was 5-6 years back to where I am today.
Wow. Some fantastic tips. And I'm very interested in the SEO blog play that you've dedicated 10 years plus to that. You said you started your blog in 2019. I think it's easy for listeners to think, he has such a head start, and thinking of it in a comparison standpoint. Yes. Like, I'll never catch up. I'll never be like him. But what would you say to encourage either the types of content, how to discover what to even write about? I think a lot of people get writer's block when they're like, a blog a week, I have so much going on, and that's where the priorities come in. But if they decide, you know what, I'm committed to this, I do want to do a long-term SEO play and have inbound traffic coming to me essentially for free, well, what types of things how can they discover or do keyword research on like what they should be talking about?
Very cool. Great question, really. I mean, when I got started, it's not as if I had a head start from the perspective of that I was a writer before. So, I mean, as you said, writer's block, whatever, I mean, it does exist. And you're right. I had all the questions like, how can you write those such consistently? In fact, I failed miserably in the beginning. I mean, I remember I wrote a blog post a week on my website, which is mortgageblog.com, and ActiveRain, which was a very popular blogging website back then. I don't know how popular it is right now, but I would write a blog post there. I would write a blog post on my blog, and I did that for 6 months every single week. And I think only after 6 or 7 months that I got my first call somebody saying that, hey, I read your blog post and I have a question or whatever that was. But
6 or 7 months.
imagine doing that. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was supposedly in an era where I did not have a lot of competition, but also in an era where people were not consuming so much on the web. I mean, I could see that that's a trend that had started, but not as much consumption as we have in, say, 2021. So yes, I had I mean, right now I have a head start because I'm probably 500, 600 blog posts ahead of you if you wanted to start today. And that's just mortgageblog.com. I write for about.com, Huffington Post, Housing Wire, homes.com, I mean, Inc.com, really some of the biggest platforms there is in the country. But I mean, it still goes down to first, I mean, figuring out, I wrote an article for, I think, the Mortgage Banker, which says that focus on the message, not the tools. And what that means is that today you might have MySpace and tomorrow it might be Facebook. And the day after it might be something else. Similarly, I mean, you might have YouTube yesterday and TikTok today, and who knows what will be tomorrow. And those are the tools that you can use. For me, what was important very early is that I figured out what's the audience that I want to address. And for me, first-time homebuyers was a big thing. I'm in Silicon Valley. It sees a lot of immigration. I'm an immigrant myself, and I could see the challenges with everything that came with it, and not just the immigrant population, but everybody else who was first-time homebuyers. So I wrote blogs on it. I wrote my first book on it, but that was my audience. Blog is a platform or a tool that I picked is because that was probably the easiest at that time. Video marketing wasn't that big a deal. The Facebook and everything else was just coming up. So if I wanted to do it today, I mean, I have many more options, right? I can do podcasts like the way you are doing, Jeffrey. I mean, if I think that I'm really good with audio part of the tool, then I probably might switch to podcast. If I think I'm great on videos, and by the way, nobody starts great. That's another thing, is that if you're thinking I'm great at video, meaning that my very first video gets 5,000 views, that's not how it works.
Such a good point.
I read some of my first few blog posts, even my first entire book, and I would not want my kids to see that. They will lose all respect for my writing. That's how bad they were. So whichever tool that you pick, you have to try, test and try on this. I wrote an article on Housing Wire on the same topic, talking about the fact that you need to try your tools first. But even more important than tools is the message. I mean, who's your audience?
Yes.
You have to be very, very careful about who your audience is. And what is your message to that audience? Once you craft that, then you might fail at a tool. Podcasting may not work for you. You might switch to YouTube or TikTok or blogging like the way I do. And then finally, the SEO part. I mean, of course, SEO happens, one, with the consistency of content creation, right? When Google's looking at you, they're seeing, did you write one blog post on a certain topic, or do you consistently write about a certain topic? All those. So first is the volume of the content that comes in. And two, in the beginning, my entire focus on what is called a long tail keyword. I wasn't trying to rank for mortgage rates or best mortgage lenders, whatever. I was trying to rank for San Jose mortgage lender or San Jose mortgage broker or mortgage rates in California. So you're trying to niche, and that's actually easier for a lot of real estate agents and mortgage loan officers, is because they mostly address the audience in their local market. So there's no reason for you to be ranking about best towns to move, unless your town is one of the best towns to move to, then that's fine. But most of your audience is searching for, I mean, homes for sale in 95123 or whatever that zip code that you operate in. So it's much easier to compete at that level, because otherwise you're competing with the Zillows and the Redfins of the world, and you'll never be able to rank higher than them. Similarly, if I was trying to rank for national keywords at the very beginning with the Quickens and the Loan Depots and Nerd Wallets and the bank rates of the world, I'll never be able to rank for that. So don't have to be too ambitious in the beginning. Go as narrow. I mean, even go down to your elementary school that's in your neighborhood, to the streets. I mean, a lot of people even just search for homes for sale on a certain street because that street might be desirable. Zillow might not think of doing it at a national scale, but you should be doing that. So content creation, which is very, very specific to the neighborhood, to the audience that you're targeting, and pick your tool and try it. If you get something wrong, just move to another. As long as your message and your audience is clear, tools are secondary to me, really.
Yes, great points. The consistency of effort over a long period of time is the biggest thing that I took from that. So many real estate agents, so many mortgage loan officers out there, they get distracted There's so many opportunities and so many ways to generate leads and so many new people, businesses calling you to try and sell you new things every single day. And it's very easy to get distracted. Well, one of my mentors says, if you don't try something and you're willing to do it for a year, don't even start it.
Yeah.
And so it seems like you have that same mentality. It's like, I'm going to give this a true shot. Like, I'm really going to dedicate to this, no matter what the initial feedback is, no matter what my initial apprehension is as a human, my nervousness. You know what? I miss a week. Next week, I'm going to be right back on it. I'm not going to beat myself up about one missed blog. Like, I'm just going to keep doing it. So really good encouragement there. I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. And, as far as the keyword research, I loved how you even went down to hyperlocal. Like, you don't have to just try and write about mortgage loans and rank on that short keyword that hundreds of thousands of businesses with more money than you do are targeting and doing PPC on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Totally.
You can do much more niche focused, hyper local, and you can rank for those things, especially if you're consistent.
And it shows you're a neighborhood expert. I mean, if you rank for real estate nationwide, they might not hire you as a listing agent for the street that they live on. But if you rank on that street, then this person really knows this street. So, and that's where my house is on. So totally makes sense. Yes.
So do you do anything on the PPC side or any paid advertising in addition to the SEO?
I do not, actually. I mean, most of my marketing strategy has been focused on content marketing strategy, and that's mostly just free, meaning that it's more the reach, whether it's to my database that I've collected, or to a wider audience who are searching for that content on the web. So not much. I mean, we have played around a little bit with PPC, not my expertise. You shouldn't be asking me questions on that.
Got it. And you did mention Huffington Post and a few other outlets. So over time, did they recognize you as a thought leader, or are those, press release style that are pushed there? Like, how are those relationships working out?
Yeah, so they're not press release type. Of course, press releases also play a key role in getting your name out. So one of the things that you have to figure out when you're creating content is that creation of the content is probably 20% of the work, and 80% of it is syndication. And how do you get people to actually see that content? And one is consistency. We already talked about that part. I mean, when someone sees that you're delivering content on a consistent basis, that audience starts expecting content from you. So that's kind of an audience that you start building as you become more consistent. But you also have to do a lot of outreach where people need to see you. Press releases are, of course, a good way of doing it. We recently launched, for example, mortgage industry's first digital human called Rachael, which is kind of an upgrade over Siri and Alexa. And that was a press release. But we sent out the press release. Every major mortgage media picked up the news because it was the first time in the world that we actually created digital human for the mortgage industry, and might be for real estate industry as well. So that helps when you have content like that you think that the other media will pick, then it's fine. But I mean, if you opened a new branch office, you did a press release, I mean, from branding perspective, it's fine. But I mean, you don't expect another media to pick that up because it's not newsworthy for them to do that. I mean, they can get picked from syndication that your press release service provides, but it's not picking up as a news. It's just syndicating the press release. So press release is a good idea from branding perspective. Totally. I mean, I would do that. You should probably have one at least a quarter, if not a month, if you have any news that's happening to you.
But you're getting some backlinks from it too.
Yeah. There are benefits of doing press releases, definitely. And then more from trying to get into bigger platforms is, again, consistency of creation. They see that you are doing it. I'll tell you an example. The first time, I think it was after 7-8 months of writing blogs, Yahoo, I got a call from a Yahoo news editor saying that they were doing something on mortgages, and they Googled and then they found my blog, and they said, will I be willing to contribute to the story they were doing? And I contributed to that. And of course, you have to be good at it because they liked what I contributed. And he was like, okay, I have a couple other co-workers who are writing for Yahoo Finance and Yahoo Real Estate. I mean, can I pass on your name to you? Because they might have quote opportunities at time. And of course, yes. And so the more you do it, the better you get is what it is. And then from Yahoo News, I mean, Bankrate picked me up as the weekly rate predictor contributor, which is only 3 or 4 mortgage loan officers in the country get to do that. And that rate prediction then gets picked by the Washington Post. And some of the journalists who were at Bankrate then moved to Forbes and NerdWallet and other places. So it takes time. I mean, this is the 11th year of me blogging. So I don't want, Jeffrey, your audience to be overawed by the fact that this is where I am, is because also understand that for the first 7 months of writing a blog on 2 different platforms, I didn't have one call or an email. So
right.
you don't just, personal branding takes a lot of time, content marketing takes a lot of time, but it's also the most robust client acquisition platform there is. I mean, you do that for 2, 3, 4 years, you hit a tipping point, you reach a critical mass. And after that, technically, if you don't want to market ever in your life and just be disciplined about content creation, you would be set. I mean, of course, you might have growth goals and you will do more stuff, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of being out of your comfort zone for people to judge you for what you're writing or what you're creating. So it's a tough world. I mean, but you have to play a long-term game on this. But if you do it, then the rewards are, I mean, exponentially higher than any other marketing activity that I know of.
Makes sense. I want to touch on Rachael. So I have developed conversational AI specifically for lead qualification for buyers and sellers. I noticed that based on my sales experience prior to getting into marketing, the biggest flaw or the biggest problem area of the real estate transaction when it came to generating the lead was the follow-up, because many of them are 9, 12 months out, especially if you generate them, through paid advertising on Facebook. They're top of funnel. I mean, that's not a bottom funnel lead. So I thought, well, what if we could create a system that would engage, educate, create authority? It was all branded to our agent client, and it would respond on behalf. And then if there was a question, because a lot of those questions would be somewhat similar, it would be buying intent or home search intent. Well, we could develop AI, right? And so that was our initial idea 4 years ago. And now fast forward to today, we have been developing it for 4 years, and it's quite amazing. And it has, MLS access in the markets that we're in. So with that being said, I'm very interested in what you've done with Rachael. So I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So it's a little different in terms of how you are approaching the conversational AI, Jeffrey, and what Rachael does, or at least it's capable of doing now. Yours is more about, as you rightly said, it's as top of the funnel lead as it can get, because those consumers may not be ready to buy for 6, 9, 12 months, who knows when. Yep. But you still need to engage them, because that's where the ROI comes from, the entire paid advertising that you're doing. For me, the way I see Rachael is more a user experience. And so it's more the frontline questions that consumers might have. So if they come to my website and they have questions about, should I take a 30-year fixed or a 5-year ARM? I mean, how do I get pre-approved? So the typical, say, top 100 frequently asked questions that a potential mortgage customer might have, whether they are 12 months away from buying or 12 seconds away from buying, those are the questions that Rachael is going to answer. So it's not so much follow-up. And then we are also building Rachael. So we have her API through Google Dialogflow integrated into our point of sale and loan origination system, where if I'm a customer, I don't have to call my processor or my loan officer. I can come to Rachael and say, hey, what's my loan status? What's my rate? And of course, we have identifying question to figure out that this is Jeffrey and not Shashank, that we are answering the questions for. So it's during the transaction that we are using a lot of Rachael's capabilities right now. And then, of course, through AI, we are trying to build in where we are trying to see through analytics and AI. I mean, through analytics, we are first trying to figure out which are the questions that she's not able to answer. So you might come and ask Rachael a question that she's not trained to answer. So that's the analytics part of it. And then through AI, she needs to then figure out how to answer those questions. If I feed her the answer through Google Dialogflow, then in the future, if someone asks the same question, that she should be able to. So it's, as you've done with 4 years of working on it, it is a long process. We just launched 1.0 about 3-4 months back, but she could already answer a lot of questions. She can answer a lot of loans in process. We haven't used her, or we haven't thought about using her for leads that's very top of the funnel and just for education purposes throughout the entire process. That's brilliant what you've done, because you're right. I mean, that's probably for me, if I were to go to PPC and generate home purchase leads for buyers, that'll probably be my biggest concern, is that, okay, I mean, I have to set up a system to follow up with them for 9 months.
Right.
And if that's already built by someone like you, that will be extremely useful for both the real estate agents and loan officers.
Right. And we do have flows for both, for the mortgage loan officer side
Perfect.
And the real estate side. And I appreciate the compliments. Thank you. It was something that came to me based on my sales experience. I thought about, what problems can I solve? What value can I offer to the real estate industry? And I thought about my previous sales experience of like, the worst part is the follow-up is,
Yeah, exactly.
That's the worst part of the sales process. It's super fun to go close a deal.
Yeah.
And I don't even necessarily mind the initial lead generation or phone calls as much, but gosh, keeping on top of all these different follow-up tasks with all these people in different stages of the funnel, it's really difficult, especially at volume. So that was the biggest thing we wanted to focus on. And lead generation just came more as a secondary aspect to feed the system that we had built. But our big focus was nurture and follow up. So I appreciate that. And Rachael sounds awesome. It's to distill it down to so that people can easily understand it that are listening. It's like a frequently asked questions instant messenger experience specific to the loan process and how valuable. I mean, my mom is about to close the loan on a new place, and she just went through the ringer. Had so many questions and things falling through and this and that. I love the API connection to where they can use identifying criteria and get a status update on their loan. So it's not just, searching a frequently asked questions knowledge base, but you're actually getting, once you then get into the customer process, now you're getting specific feedback to your loan. That's brilliant as well.
No, yeah. And it has immense potential. Again, very different verticals, even though they're both conversational AI. And as you know, I mean, the consumer preference, again, has widespread acceptance of products like Siri or Alexa or Google Assistant. I mean, that's in an audio format that already exists. I mean, we are asking Alexa and Siri more questions more and more. I wouldn't say that Google searches have gone down, but I mean, if I can just ask Siri, I mean, who was the first president of the United States? Who was the 17th president? I mean, all of us probably know who was the first. But so we ask all that questions all the time. So if the user preference is moving towards that side, that's why the creation of Rachael is, because we want people to, and we want to start a campaign called Have You Talked to Rachael Yet? It's like almost synonymous with, if you're thinking of getting a mortgage, have you talked to Rachael yet? So with the potential is, of course, limitless, and we being first in the industry definitely helps.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's fantastic. So you have an amazing story. I mean, you came from India, and now you're top 15, MLO in the nation, which is amazing. And I'm curious, what is the single most important action throughout that 10, 12-year journey that you took on a daily basis, which attributed most to your success?
I think morning routines are extremely important. We are all very, very busy, especially, I mean, whether you're on the real estate side of the mortgage side of it, it's one of the craziest industry there is in terms of the stress it can come up with. There are millions of things that potentially can go wrong, and sometimes some of them do actually go wrong. Not because we are bad loan officers or we are bad real estate agents. It's just there are just so many moving parts. My first job was at GE out of my business school, GE Consumer Finance. And GE is big on a concept called Six Sigma, which is that out of a million potential mistakes, you should not have more than 2.4. And if you reach that, that's called the Six Sigma level. Every mortgage transaction probably has 500,000 potential mistakes that you can miss. You can miss that sentence in the title report. Or you can miss that line on appraisal where it says, oh, you need to fix that leaking faucet before the loan can close. So given all of that stuff, and you probably don't even have in our industry to make even that 2.4 mistake. I mean, that could be catastrophic for some of our clients when we do that. But I mean, things like that happen. So I think building morning routines, and I kind of read a lot of routines from a lot of successful people and leaders and influencers through the ages of time, but I had to customize it for what worked for me. I have two young kids, so of course it's not a question of where I can just meditate for an hour and have all the, so we of course don't have that time in the world, but I have about a 20 minutes routine that I started following almost 6-7 years back and has worked really well for me. It's 7 minutes of workouts. I have a 7-minute app. If you go to the app store, there's a 7-minute app that you can, so 7 minutes for whether you want to do cardio or strength, whatever kind of workout that you want to do. So you can do that. About 7, 8 to 10 minutes of meditation. And then it's 3 minutes of basically thinking about what's one thing that I need to do today? What are the 3 things that I want to get done over the next 6 months? And those could be wild vision. Is that okay? I want to create like the best technology or do this. And they may not even sound as realistic as it has to be. And that could be from 6 months to 2 years where I need to be. And then finally, I end with gratitude, which is 3 things that I'm currently grateful for. And it could be as simple as I mean, somebody got me coffee yesterday that I was not expecting. So it does not have to be grateful about like the biggest things in life. It can be very, very small thing, but something you're grateful. I think Tony Robbins once said is that you can be grateful and anxious or fearful or stressful at the same time. So you can either be this or you can be that. So if you're in the state of that gratitude to begin the day with, and it's 20 minutes, it's not long. If you don't want to do workout, that's really cuts it down to 11, 12 minutes of routine. But that really puts me in the right mindset for not just that day, but really my short-term and the long-term goals. So that I think, I mean, I can talk about a lot of tactical things that I do throughout the day, but that how do you start your morning, I think is just very, very important for me. And I would believe that for probably most of the people, especially in our industry.
That makes total sense. I love the 20-minute routine. So a lot of people, they say, I don't have that hour, but Tony Robbins talks about, okay, if you don't have your hour of power, then, do your 15 minutes of fame, right?
Yeah.
And so you've made it work for you, even with children and with, business and super busy. I love the 7 minutes. By the way, you don't need to go to the gym for 3 hours and take selfies in the mirror to get a workout. Exactly. I'm all about
your body will react the same way whether you take a selfie or not.
And I'm all about high intensity, low interval. So it's like, warm up if you need to, but then go hard for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You'll be dead. I promise you, if you do some more just high intensity stuff. And then, meditation after, it's very strategic, because if you get up in the morning and you meditate, you're going to go back to sleep, right?
Yeah, exactly. You get your adrenaline up, and then you calm down and focus on. And again, even with meditation, my first article on Inc.com that went live 2 weeks back, also talks about the same thing, is that you don't have to be thinking about how do I meditate for 10 minutes or 20 or 30 or whatever you hear other people talk about. You think about 30 seconds at a time. I call it my 30-second rule, is that any new habit that you want to form, just say, I'll do it for 30 seconds. I mean, if you don't work out in the morning, just say, I'll do one push-up in the morning. That's all I'll do. I don't want to be doing more. Or if I want to meditate, I'll only meditate for 30 seconds. Because if you've never done this, and by the way, I came in and out of this all the time. I was like, I hear from everyone, meditation is so great. And it's like, who sits for 10 minutes just doing nothing? I mean, that's not me. I don't see that as me doing meditation for 10 minutes or even workout in the morning. But when you tell yourself that I'll only do it for 30 seconds, you're like, how hard can it be to do 30 seconds? But what you're doing is that you're moving from a state of inaction to the state of action. And now if you're doing one push-up, you'll probably end up with doing 5, hopefully 10 as the time progresses. Who knows, maybe 20, 30, right? But if you start by saying that, I want to look like Jeffrey on day one, and then I want to do 50 push-ups in one go when I've done nothing before. I mean, the brain is automatically will tell you, I mean, are you crazy to even think that that's going to happen? Just like blogging, for example. I mean, we talked about that, right? I mean, you cannot set yourself as a comparison with somebody who has been doing it for 12 years. Or if I wanted to do podcasting and say, I mean, I want the same audience and same finesse by which Jeffrey does it, I mean, that's just me setting wrong example for myself and setting me up for failure. So that 30-second rule for habit formation has worked great for me. And I personally think it's a great way to inculcate a new habit in any new person.
I think that's a great rule. You break down the habit into its simplest form, the most easy first step that it could possibly be. And by then simply taking that first action, because your mind can consume, okay, I can do that, then it starts that momentum.
Yes, totally.
No, I love that. And I think more important, just to break down that morning routine, which I don't want to overlook the last piece of it. The questions that you asked were so great. What's the one thing, my biggest, most important thing I need to accomplish today? Great question. Yeah. And the 6-month outlook, the vision, what 3 things do I want to accomplish in the next 6 months? Was that the question?
Yeah. So 6 months to 2 years, depending on the complexity of the task. But really, one thing that you want to get done today, and 3 of your big goals that you want to get done between 6 months to 2 years. And
I bet when you finish that one thing that day, you feel really good.
Yes, that's what it is. At the end of the day, you're like, that was my one thing in the morning. And in the evening, like, again, at the time of, when you're going to the bed, you're saying, did I do that one thing? And again, like you said, if you miss a blog a week, I mean, don't beat yourself too hard. I mean, there are fires and urgencies that happen to our business all the time. I said, okay, I missed that one thing today, but we'll come to it tomorrow. And it's very easy to beat yourself if you miss something. But if you keep giving that self-love to yourself and come back and try it again next day, I think that has worked very well for me as well.
Man, I love that. I'm very curious where you see the industry going. You're investing in technology with
Yes.
Rachael, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, what are your 5-10 year projections as technology continues to be integrated with
Yeah.
the existing real estate industry as a whole?
I think Jeffrey, first we need to see, why is the industry moving, and why is it moving in the direction it is? I think there are two really big play here. One is that, through hundreds and thousands of years, humans haven't lived for hundreds and thousands, but thousands of years of human evolution, we always had this case of information asymmetry, right? The sellers always knew more than the buyers, right? Even very early. Even if I was doing a barter and I was bartering, say, a seashell with a goat. If I'm giving you a goat, I know more about that goat than you do, and you probably know more about seashell than I do, right? And we always had that information asymmetry, even through the 60s, 70s, 80s, even all the way to 90s. If I'm trying to buy a home and you're a real estate agent, you are probably the only one who knows which homes are for sale, because I, as a buyer, I do not know where to find those homes for sale. So I come to you and you're telling me, okay, these are the homes for sale. Let me drive you to those homes and then show you those homes. If you were trying to get a mortgage, you probably didn't know what kind of interest rates existed, what kind of loan programs existed, right? So
Right.
I had this information asymmetry. You come to me and I'll tell you the rates are 5%, and you probably have no way of knowing if that 5% is true or not. Or I can tell you I provide the best service that I do, and nobody else in the country provides better service than me. Again, information asymmetry. You had no way of going to Yelp or Google or Facebook or Zillow, wherever, and checking out my reviews, because that did not exist. Now we are moving from a world, last 10, 15 years of thousands of years of human evolution of information asymmetry. We are moving to a world, or have already moved to a world, of information parity. Now, in most cases, if you come to me and I tell you the rate is 5%, you can go on Bankrate and say, are you kidding me? I see 3.5 there. Or you are telling me that I provide the best customer service in the planet and I see 3.5 star on Yelp or Google. I'm like, are you kidding me? Read all these reviews that says that you're not the best service people in the country. So, and similarly for if you're looking for homes for sale or whatever information you're looking for. So we are moving in that world where just having basic information to provide is not good enough. You have to be better than just being a basic agent, whether you're on the loan side or whether you're on the real estate. So you have to be a true advisor, a true consultant who can provide them the information which is not easy to figure out from the content that's there on the web. So that's one thing. Moving from information asymmetry to moving to information parity is a huge paradigm shift that not just our industry has seen, pretty much all the industries have seen. And the second is the customer expectation of more predictability in the process. Amazon Prime brought that to us and have kind of spoiled that. If I order my toothpaste, I know that 99.9% of the time, within 48 hours, that toothpaste will be on my doorstep. And it doesn't matter what I'm buying, right? I could be buying a gorilla size grill or a toothpaste size, whatever that thing is. If I'm ordering it through Amazon Prime, I could be guaranteed that thing will be on my door 99.9% of the time. They might miss it here and there, but they will get it.
Yeah.
Similarly, you can order food from DoorDash. You can know that you need to get your plates out because within 3 minutes, the driver will be pulling into the driveway with your food. And you're guaranteed that will happen.
And
right?
You can see the process.
You can see the process.
Drivers not just, on the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Not just you ordered it and 3 minutes before you get like a text alert saying, yeah, your driver is on the way. 3 minutes, he'll be there or she'll be there, right? You can actually track it along. He's waiting at the restaurant. They have accepted the food. He's sitting in the car and the car is moving, right? Uber did that.
Yep.
So everything that we are experiencing now has become a lot more predictable than it was before, right? You don't have to be standing on the side of the road in a freezing winter and trying to hail a cab, not knowing whether it will be 3 seconds or 3 hours before you'll find one. You can tap one and Uber will send you one, knowing exactly that you will get it in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And I know that mortgage and real estate processes are much more complicated than, say, hailing a cab or ordering a food. But the generation has grown up on that. Millennials still saw a little bit of an offline world, right? They grew up in an online world, but there was an offline world. Gen Z haven't seen anything offline. My 6-year-old does not order from anything but Amazon Prime. She knows how to check orders. She knows how to call Alexa to say, where is my stuff? She knows everything that you need to know about Amazon Prime. And she knew that when she was 4.5. Imagine telling that generation that you're going to get a mortgage where you don't know where the process is. You don't know how much time appraisal will take. Okay, can you guarantee you will close in 21 days? Maybe, maybe not, because there are 100 moving pieces. We don't know who will deliver, who will not. And that's going to be huge. So I'm not here to predict where whether by 2030 or whichever year the industry will be fully automated and you and I or the agents will not exist. I'm not sure if it will be there, but the direction in which we are moving has accelerated so much, especially last year when people realized that to get a mortgage, you don't have to walk into a bank's branch and shake somebody's hands. Even people who were not, say, from Silicon Valley or from other tech part of the country, even those people, I mean, are kind of used to now doing business in a virtual world. So given all that acceleration that we have seen with digitization and automation, I definitely see a much bigger play in it. And so the people who will do really well will have the best combination. I posted a video on Facebook yesterday, how we went from a lead to clear to close in less than 6 hours. And in that video, I'm talking about of course, the automation helped us get there, but also there's a lot of people and the culture and everything else is in the organization. If you run a company with a culture which is obsessed about consumer experience, then that along with automation will get you there. But if you're trying to think that this is just an engineering problem and that's all that we are trying to solve, or this is just a human problem, I'm completely blindfolded to what's going on around me because this has worked for me for the last 10, 15, 20 years I've been in the industry. And I don't believe that automation is going to change any of that. Those are the two extremes and none of them will survive. But if you have the best of both worlds and if you don't have it, you're working at it, I think that's where the future is.
Wow. Phenomenal answer. Have you written blogs about similar topics?
I have not, but I've been told to write more about it. So I'll actually, my goal is to create more content about the future and technology and everything else. So far, my focus had been mostly on just addressing the consumers, but yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing on this. This is the best platform for someone to watch it.
Right. And I asked that because for my listeners, he was not prepared for that question. And I think knocked it out of the park. That was you're welcome. That was a phenomenal answer about the asymmetry of information and how that's shifted. I've explained that in different words so many times, and how in the review culture of today, we have the insight of every past experience that was negative or positive that was recorded in regards to this business or this, this personal brand online, just waiting for us. I mean, when I travel to other countries, I love traveling. I go right on Google and I see only, 5-star reviews at this restaurant. That's the one I'm going to.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that is such a shift in the last just 10 years, 15 years, like you said.
Yep.
And so that's a huge, huge point. But then the Gen Z born into technology, in 10 years being in their 20s and, the millennials who, yes, were born without it. Like myself, I was born without it. I got a cell phone kind of late and things like that. But then now fully have adopted technology and I'm a total tech savvy person.
Yep.
I also see a lot more transparency in the process in both real estate and mortgage, and having, a line with dots for each step, and you can see the progress in some login or, some form of app that tracks you. And it's like, okay, here you go. Hey, just a little update. The underwriting process has begun. You have no action items, just letting you know. Just something, you're not left in the dark.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think that makes people anxious when they're just
it does. Yeah.
Hey, how's your clothes going? I heard you get a new house. I don't know.
I mean, even if all you know is that no action pending at your end, the loan is in underwriting, we have 3 days turn time, you'll hear from us back again on Tuesday. That's all they need to know. They at least know someone's taking care of it. Yes.
Have a good weekend. Yeah.
Have a good weekend.
So as far as books go, do you have any great book recommendations? 1 to 3 books that have greatly impacted your life or career?
Yeah, a few. I was very bad at reading books, even all the way to my postgrad, my MBA. My friends would actually say, I mean, how do you even pass your exams without reading books? I just hated reading text. And so my favorite app, if you'll ask me, of all time is Audible, is because finally I was able to read, and of course, listen, hundreds of books over the last few years. And that has been a complete game changer. I mean, the kind of things that, you can learn from $8, $10, $12 books that will take you hundreds and thousands, if not millions of dollars to learn from some of the best thought leaders on the planet. So that's huge. And for me, driving back and forth from work, dropping off my kids, whatever I'm doing, it's almost never music or anything else. It's almost always Audible that's playing in the car. So just from that perspective, that works great. Because again, that's one thing that a lot of people have is I don't have time to read a book. It's because I have kids or business and everything else today. But just consider how much driving time that you have. wherever you are going. Even if you add all that up, that's a lot of time. You can potentially read, if nothing else, at least half or one book a month. And that's good enough. You don't have to be where you're reading a book a week and then you're not really implementing or executing on it.
Right.
You don't have to be reading so many of them. So from book perspective, I mean, some of my top ones that I would say is that The Principles of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini has had a huge impact in my life. Influencing other people's behavior in our business especially is very important. Of course, we are talking ethically. We are not trying to influence in a way which is unethical, but trying to for other people to see your viewpoint by persuading them in some way is very important. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was an FBI hostage negotiator. That's a book on negotiation. A little bit of hardcore for if you're very new to negotiation, by the way, because of course his negotiation was life and death situation because he was negotiating hostage situation, but really good book for some of the basic stuff. The Super Brain by Deepak Chopra and then Rudy Tanzi is another that opened up the possibilities of how much the brain can do potentially, and actually finally got me into meditation because of the not just the at philosophical level the benefits of it, but real tangible benefit that it provides. So that has been one of the best books that I've read. And then I read also a lot about non-business stuff. So I'm forgetting the name on the human evolution, Sapiens. Sapiens is one of my favorite books that talks about human evolution from where we were to where we are and where we are going. It has to be one of my top 5-6 books. It may not be a business book because it talks about human evolution, but I also read a lot about biohacking and brain hacking. And so I also follow a lot of blogs. Tim Ferriss podcast on pretty much everything that you need to get better at has to be one of the best. Dave Asprey is huge on biohacking. He was my coach for a short while. So yeah, he wasn't that expensive back then. So yeah, again, so there are lots of other things that you can do, but Audible, or I'm actually reading a book right now called Play Bigger, and I'm only halfway through it, but it already seems that will probably make it to my top 10 books. It has to be one of the best books about how do you make yourself a category leader into something, like something that, I mean, it's a book on differentiation and creating yourself as category leader. But again, a great book for our industry because we get commoditized a lot because we say, I mean, every loan officer, every real estate agent is the same. So a book like that will really open your eyes into what is possible. So yeah, those are probably some of my best books. I mean, I might have missed
very good book suggestions. Yeah. And Audible, if you can't sit down and read a book, Audible, or, I just buy them on iTunes in the audiobook store. And same thing. I mean, I love that. I love being able to double time, like if I'm cooking or if I'm, prepping or if I'm driving, whatever it is, where you don't have to engage your mind to create something or write yourself. Pretty much you can now listen to a book and better yourself and feed the mind. So Tony Robbins calls it net time, right? No extra time. And leveraging all the time that you can to better yourself. I love that. Is there a question that I should have asked you, or anything that you'd like to elaborate on from earlier?
No, I mean, one thing that again, just from my experience, is that a couple of things is when you try something new, you will be out of your comfort zone. And if you don't want to be out of your comfort zone, you will never succeed at pretty much anything. I mean, unless you are, they say even Mozart was not born musician. You still had to practice a lot before he got to where he was. So, even the concept of child prodigies, and some of the books that I've read, says that even kind of mistaken because even they practiced a lot before they were known as child prodigies, so to say. So we are probably not born with something which we are world class at the time of birth. I came to the country, as I said, I was 18 months in the country. English was my third language, and I literally knew no one. I had $1,900 to start this business. So I had to go through a lot of stuff in my life, whether it was speaking, whether it's writing, whether being in media. All of this stuff was completely new to me. And it doesn't matter whether English might be your first language, you were born in this country, it still might be very, very difficult for you because these are the things that as humans, just being out there is one of the discomfort thing that we have, right? Even seasoned speakers say that when they get on the stage, the first few seconds, they're very nervous. It's because it's just a different feeling altogether. So that's really my biggest thing, is that you have to be willing to get out of that comfort zone. Always this feeling of I'll be judged because I do this, and you will be. That's what it is. And if you put this content out there, Jeffrey, some people might say, great job, Shashank, that was really good. Or some people might say, this was okay, I've heard this 50 times before. What's the big deal about this? Whatever it is. But You have to do it consistently. Some people may or may not like it. And you can have a YouTube video with 5 million thumbs up. It might still have 5,000 thumbs down. And that's how it is. Not everyone will like everything. So getting out of your comfort zone and then being disciplined about it, I think those are the two most difficult thing, yet the most rewarding thing that you can do. So first get out of it and then be disciplined, keep doing it until it just becomes natural. I remember the first time I was doing a 4-minute speech. And it wasn't even a speech. I sponsored a very small real estate breakfast event because I was a new loan officer. I was trying to get in front of real estate agents. I said, okay, I'll sponsor the breakfast. Cost me $100, whatever it was. And I was given 4 minutes to pitch who I was. Back then, we had this Olympus audio recorder. There was no iPhone back then. So I recorded my 4-minute speech 27 times. So I would record it, I'll listen to it. I'll record it, I'll listen to it. I said, this sucks. Let's make it better. Let's make it better. So I did it 27 times. Still, when I went there to do that 4 minutes thing, I was extremely nervous. It went well, thankfully, but it was 27 times practice for a 4-minute in front of literally 20 people maybe in the room. And now you can throw me in front of 2,000 people, give me 2 minutes notice, and I'll come up with something in terms of presenting, which hopefully will not suck and people will like it. It's not, and again, you should not see that me of today saying that, oh, he can still make it happen even with a 2 minutes notice, is because you should also see that nervous little kid practicing it for 27 times for a 4-minute speech is because that's getting out of the comfort zone does. So wherever you are right now, it really doesn't matter. You can start something today. And the good thing about the world that we live in is that there is so much access to, whether you're at Coursera or you're at YouTube or you're at Udemy. There is literally, you can pick up, difficult tasks like computer coding and can become really good in 6 to 9 months if you really put your time and effort and brain into it. So
right.
Pick something, whatever. It might be out of your comfort zone, but if you really, really give it your best and really try it, who knows, 9 months down the road, you could be teaching that stuff to other people. That's how good you can get.
That's right. Great suggestions. And I really appreciate you closing with that. How can listeners contact you?
Mortgageblog.com is, of course, my blog. So it's probably an easy domain to remember. ArcusLending.com is my company's website, and those will have my contact details. Of course, connect me on social media. I'm not on TikTok, will not be on TikTok, but there are other platforms that I should be available for you to connect me with.
Amazing. Shashank Shekhar, thank you so much for being on today. Really appreciate it. And this has been a phenomenal episode. I know my listeners are going to love it.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you want to accomplish your real estate goals, then I highly suggest downloading my free Ultimate Real Estate Goal Setting Framework. The link is in the description of the show, and it will help you break down your annual income goal into the amount of phone calls, appointments, or open houses you need in order to achieve that goal. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.